The next generation of iOS 18 is here, and I have the developer profile installed on my iPhone 15 Pro. And let's go ahead and talk about it while we compare it against the previous generation, iOS 17. So compatibility. The compatible iPhones are the iPhone 15s all the way down to the iPhone SE, second generation or older. So that means if you have an iPhone SE, XR, SE Max, 10s, 10s Max, iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 11 Max, all the way to the latest generation iPhone 15 Pro, you're good. You are set. You're able to use this new firmware update. And I already took a liberty in customizing my new homepage because that's one of the new abilities that we have on the new version of iOS. Is if we enter a wiggle mode, and where previously it just used to look like this, now instead of a plus, we now have an edit tool, which gives us the ability to not only add widgets right here, but also continue customizing our homepage. So app icons are new here. You can choose between either small, which will include the text on the bottom which app this is, or if you select large as an example, it makes it big and bulky like this. And in my opinion, I think this looks like a better layout if you already are familiar with the apps you have on your homepage. Now, just like our dark mode or light mode, you have the ability to allow the app icons to switch between light or dark. So light will be full colors, but if you like to add like a color tint, you do have access to this color selector right here, and you can increase the darkness or lighten up based off the color you are selecting. I think this is kind of cool. And there's also this tool over here you could tap on that allows you to get color accuracy to the wallpaper you're trying to match it with. So if you're trying to do something cool like that, you could actually do that. I think that's pretty impressive. For the lock page, if we go back in wiggle mode and go into customization, you can also tap dark or light mode right here to see how it looks like between those two different modes manually instead of having to go in control center. And then if you lock our device and enter wiggle mode, if you tap customize, here we can actually swap the different icons right here. And the list that you have available is this. So since this is the beta version, not everything is going to work properly. As you see, some of these icons are missing, but we could include translate, home, a calculator, shortcuts, a stopwatch. Feel free to pause if you like to read the list. But there's a lot of things we could do, and I'm pretty certain later on we should see support for third-party apps as well. Even the wallet app is here, as well as you could swap it to pin your Apple Watch. And if you select the other side, I'm sure you could have access to all those same icons as well. There we go. Now everything loaded. So this is how these icons look like. Again, feel free to pause to read the list to see what we have available right now. Even tap to cache, which now whenever you lock your device, you don't have to have that person in your contact list. You could just tap your device to send payment without having to add each other if you're using Apple Pay. That'll definitely come in handy, especially if you're like at a fair or something like that, purchasing something, just want to do a quick transaction. Easily making it easier to use than using Venmo or other third parties. But I am going to go ahead and switch this back to normal because another new app I like to highlight is the password app, where previously on iOS 17, what I used to do is I used to have the password shortcut right here, which I created using the shortcut app that will take me to my password logs. Apple gave us a dedicated app where you can just tap on it, unlock your device, and will give you access to all your passcodes, as well as the ability to seamlessly sync everything across your Apple devices and easily autofill whenever you encounter those websites where you need to sign in. Where previously I did this, and it would just launch a shortcut app and will take me to the settings where I will locate my password. This is way more convenient, easy for like the non-techie iPhone user. But moving back, another thing, when it comes down to customizing your apps, you could just leave gaps like this. It doesn't have to autofill on all the way to the very top like it used to. For some reason, that one's not allowing me to do that. I guess the gap is, it doesn't let me utilize this bottom row due to the fact I'm using large icons. Oh yeah, that's definitely it. It doesn't allow me to fill up this bottom row. So, but we can now leave gaps as you see right here. Now, one of the new features that was the eye tracking ability, I have played with it. It works pretty well to the most part. It takes a while to get used to. It's super easy to get access to. You just launch the setting app and go into the accessibility tab, and then just scroll down where you find eye tracking. This is where you go in and enable this. And when you enable this, I highly recommend having the iPhone like eye leveled, because if you set it down lower, it's basically going to point these dots around the screen. You just have to make eye contact with it, and that's how it could calibrate. because once it's calibrated, I could literally control it just by looking at my phone. Now, I do have the table flat on an angle, so it's not going to work very well for this video demonstration, but I was playing with it, and it surprisingly works extremely well for like contactless operation of your iPhone. But I'm going to disable that because it's just wanted to show you guys how that worked and how the setup procedure works. In terms of control center, this is how the old controller center used to look like. It worked. I really didn't have any complaints, but it got to a point where there's so much stuff we could add because now we have custom pages for different categories. So our media player will be located here, where previously it was located on the top corner. It still is there, but here it allows you to have more media control access, speakers, and even shows you what's currently playing through if you have like supported compatible Apple speakers. But then down here you have all your home stuff too, instead of the limitation you had right over here where you're like squeezing everything in a small row. Here you still have the small row access, but I only could put two things, my Apple TV as well as my door lock. But over here I have access to all my other smart home appliances that's compatible with this, including like my smart lights. And then all the way at the very bottom will be find your wireless and cellular settings, including the satellite. But in terms of shortcuts, you can still do the previous shortcuts like long hold on the Wi-Fi icon to quickly go to the Wi-Fi settings, as you see right there. Same applies for Bluetooth. But now we have this new satellite availability status, because now you could actually send a text message, either SMS or iMessage, so long as you're inside of a satellite. No, unfortunately, this would not work if you enable airplane mode and you're on a flight. You have to be inside of the sky for it to actually work. But since VPNs are becoming more and more common, now there actually is a VPN toggle which you could enable and toggle right there on Control Center. In terms of additional changes, is the new animation for the flashlight apps, because now we actually have this. And in addition to that, where previously if we unlock our device and go in Control Center, you know, by long holding you'll have the slider ability to adjust the brightness. Well, now, and activating it, we now have the ability to change the width of the flashlight, the brightness with this cool animation slider, and how the depth basically of the flashlight, if you wanted more spotlight focus or more wide focus. And it really does update the camera in real time too. I've noticed it really does narrow it down compared to its full wideness ability at max brightness. That's really interesting how Apple was able to unlock this new setting for us. Just however, for iPhones with the old school like notch, it only works with the dynamic island, because if I toggle the flash right here, it doesn't do that cool animation, and it gives me access to the old school slider, brightness slider we had in the past. So that's only available for the newer iPhones with the dynamic island. And if you notice, the power off button was actually moved finally in the Control Center. Now you can actually just press here to get access to your power off screen, instead of probably Google's most asked questions, how to turn off your iPhone. You got to enter like some combo move just to get to this screen. I'm glad Apple moved it there. It resolves that problem a lot of people typically ask on Google. And then if you long hold, you'll enter the edit mode, which also give you freedom to change the sizes and really customize what you want to prioritize more in your Control Center homepage. You can even add controls, and the list goes on and on. It's pretty amazing, but can definitely feel overwhelming, I'm sure, for anybody who just now started using this. You can even have mirror your Apple Watch from here if you want to, or control other devices. So I like the fact that Apple's given us this freedom to really customize it through what we need it for. But this, I'm definitely going to have to make like a guide video on how to use some of these two unique abilities, so those that need something unique, they know exactly how to do it. You even have live speak too right here. You could actually add, and you can even adjust the size too to these icons, but this one doesn't really allow us to do that. But like our smart home appliances, you could just do that. It just glitched on this. Again, it's a beta. You could do a similar thing I noticed with widgets too. If we go back in wiggle mode, you could actually enlarge the widgets. So if we select this one as an example, this one doesn't support it. I guess some apps support it, but let me add a native widget real quick to iOS. So here we're adding Apple Music. I'm choosing the short widget. If we want to, we could quickly extend the widget and change the size like so, without having to actually launch the widget app and going into that mode and select the two different sizes. And these are the new gaps you could leave if you select the large app icons. So yeah, if you're trying to squeeze as much apps as much as possible, it might be worth noting that it's best to select the small size because you can really utilize the additional row. See? But you can still leave those big gaps as you saw earlier. Another new thing you can locate is a new wallpaper. If we lock our device, add, and we scroll down, there's now new iOS 18. And these are the new wallpapers that we have to choose from. And if you have regrets, instead of going back and select the color, you can just swipe. So it does accept all these colors. And just like previously, you can switch between light or dark mode or have it on automatic from here. You can also have the effect on or off. It's been moved where you could add the effect on this wallpaper if it's compatible, where it like goes over the time or other stats we have up here. Fonts, nothing has really changed. It's still the same fonts, that we've seen, but this is still a beta. Apple could decide on adding more later on. And then there is this new color selector right here for the time, which I think is kind of neat, where it gives it this rainbow effect. Not sure if this will be customizable in the near future, but just something interesting I wanted to highlight. But going back on our home page, another new feature can be located by long holding the app. You now have this bottom section where some of these apps, you could just toggle their widgets right then and there. And if you like to reverse it, you just go back to its native app. So that's kind of neat that you don't have to go actually in the widgets to do these type of things. You can select the different sizes, the options available right here and there, as well as quickly enter widget mode, which before you still had that ability. I could enter the widget, share the app. But to enable the new lock ability for your apps, if you just want to lock a personal app in general, you just don't want anybody to get access to it, it's super easy to do so. I like the fact you can just long hold and you'll see the lock Face ID ability. So if you have an app that you just want to keep private for whatever said reason, maybe like a smart home appliance, something you just don't want anybody to have access to, just long hold and select require Face ID. But there also is a cool option where it lets you hide the app from your home pages in general, as well as lock with Face ID. So if I select this, I'm assuming it's loading. You're gonna have to lift up your phone and scan with Face ID. A little pop-up window will pop up showing us exactly what we will be doing. This app will no longer be visible on your iPhone except in a few places such as settings. Face ID will require to reveal, open, or use Siri with the app to open it. So this is definitely interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and hide it. So now it shouldn't pop up at all. There we go, my Tesla app is gone. So if I go ahead and do the same thing with Electrify America, hide it, and require Face ID, and if I request it, open Electrify America. Okay, so I guess the Siri function doesn't work right just yet. But I know if I scroll all the way to the very right and go into my categorized apps, and if I scroll down, I can see the new hidden album located right here, which does require your Face ID or the passcode to the phone to unlock it. So once I hit enter, there they are. And then I have access to those apps again, but it just glitched. There we go. Now it launched. Again, it's glitchy. It's a beta. I wasn't expecting it to work perfectly, but I'm really surprised how easy it is to first set up. It's just unfortunate that the Siri command doesn't work. Another new thing I noticed, whenever I was long holding the power to activate Siri, there's now this new animation right here, which I think is kind of cool, because previously it wouldn't do any of that. It was just Siri by itself. The photo layout also got a new update too, because previously the app layout used to look like this. This is going to be its own different video, but just wanted to show you how the new photos look like. It's kind of confusing in my opinion. I wish Apple left it as is. It was perfectly fine. Now I am switching phones real quick because I was experimenting and this one has my SIM card currently. When you now send a new message, there's now this new text animation you can select, and you have these to choose from. There's Nod, there's Ripple, there's Bloom, and this is where you can find the different font tools you can add, like if you want to underline it or just cross it off. You can select a lot, as you see right here, all at once. So you can just tap send, and on their side it will create that weird effect. But since this is SMS text message, it's not going to do that for them. But I did want to demonstrate the new animation when you long hold for those quick reactions, like the ha ha ha. That's how they look like now. And by selecting here, you can also attach a little emoji as well if you want to use that instead of the actual default ones up here. And then when an individual replies, their response will also be updated as well. And you can still long hold to get the original effects we are used to, like the full screen if you want. So I guess Apple just gave us the additional text effects that you have access to right here. Now for satellite messaging, this is only available for the iPhone 14 or newer, the iPhones that actually have cellular connectivity abilities. Just something that Apple didn't really highlight that I found out afterwards. In terms of Apple Maps has added the capability to do custom routes for your outdoor hikes, with enhancement in offloading maps, especially around national parks, and topograph support. Now, as the time of recording this video, the current developer beta does not have access to it because I'm unable to actually see the topographs where it typically would show on my Apple Watch. But I'm sure this will be coming out pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. And then the new calculator app. The calculator app did receive an update because now whenever you do simple math questions, it now can actually keep different logs. And you can actually go in to select some older logs you may have, mathematical questions you may have entered. You could select it, or you could delete them all. So it does keep track of all this. This feature isn't just coming out for the iPads. The iPhones also will have log capabilities where you go back and backtrack some of your previously entered data. Before, we didn't have this ability. If we go into landscape mode, it also has been vamped just a little. All these additional icons are gone. If you like to keep it basic, you have now a basic calculator on landscape mode. But if you need these, you can always just tap here and you can actually specify the different rows that you may want to have access to. You can even do now math notes too, just like the iPads, where you can actually go in and enter equations from here, and you can utilize your finger and we'll respawn as soon as I add an equal sign. And just like that, it auto-filled it. So even the iPhones have that ability. And if you have an iPhone 15 with a new action side button, the action, they didn't really add anything, as most of these same ones, previous ones that we found on the previous generation, are still here. But what is new is translates, I think, control center, shortcut, but accessibility can now be added here, or you could just disable it, no actions. I'm sure that Apple is going to continue adding more. Now, in terms of the new version of Siri, I guess, but it's not Siri. I guess it's actually being called Apple Intelligence, where it'll be the outer ring for the virtual voice system to pop up. And at the time of this video, the compatibility is pretty low for iPhones. It's literally just only the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Max. That's it. And the more and more I'm starting to use iOS 18, I'm starting to believe that it's going to be a separate version of Siri. It's not really going to be Siri because the animation is totally different, as you have the ability to summon that virtual voice system by just tapping double on the bottom portion of the screen. It's not allowing us to do that because, as you saw earlier, by long holding, we still have the old school Siri animation. And this is not coming out and becoming available for developers on day one. It may become available later on down the fall time. This led me to believe that this is all due to the fact that this was just a recent partnership with ChatGPT. Apple wanted to make sure everything is working properly before they could actually release this to the developer betas. So if you were also excited to test out Apple Intelligence, see how it works, it's not yet available, unfortunately. Then for phone calls, for the phone app, there's now a new look for voicemails. So now you can actually view the live voicemail right then with context text right there, and you can decide on answering. Same concept as previous, but just a new redesigned look. So if I go ahead and call myself and then just go into the live voicemail, I could tap the view by unlocking with Face ID, and it will actually update right then and there in real time. So this is how that new live voicemail looks like. Pretty interesting stuff. And here you can make the decision if you want to and then pick up. And then soon there should be a new, and then soon we'll be able to actually record phone calls as well, alerting the other caller automatically that this phone call is being recorded. Now let's go ahead and hop in the car and see what's new in CarPlay. It's a similar layout. If I go over here, it's going to show me my home page. Nothing has really changed here. Settings, there is this new accessibility tab, which you could actually enable voice control to actually use CarPlay with voice commands. It will even show the microphone icon that's listening right here. And then you also got filter options too, if you're hard at seeing, like colors and such, which is stuff I don't see other automakers actually integrate with their UI. And then if we go back above here, we also have sound, which allows us to actually silent our modes based off our devices. So turn on silent mode or do not change silent mode depending on your device. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm going to experiment more and find out exactly what that really means and how to use voice control But in terms of appearance and wallpapers, let's see if we have any new wallpaper. It doesn't really seem like we received new wallpapers. Everything seems to be identical to like the previous one we always had. So no new wallpapers, but things could always change because after all, we are indeed in a beta. Yeah, everything's pretty much very similar. There you guys have it. That is everything new for iOS 17. Make sure to stick around because I plan on making a more in-depth video going through like over 50 new changes that I find for iOS 18. So make sure you are subscribed if you don't want to miss that video. But this was just a general comparison between iOS 17 and 18. Hopefully this answers any questions or concerns you may have in terms of compatibility and other stuff. But if there's a question that comes to mind you just have to know, feel free to comment down below. I'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. Thank you so much for watching.